Today's lab is going to be on acids, and there's a few definitions for an acid. Here's one of them. This one is the Arrhenius definition, which says that acids increase the concentration of protons. Increase the concentration of, let's say, hydrogen cations. Another way to say this is using shorthand notation is it increases. We indicate concentration with brackets, and a hydrogen cation looks like this with a positive charge. Okay, so let me quickly explain what this H plus is. Typical hydrogen has a proton in the nucleus, no neutrons, and also has one electron outside, and this is going to be in an orbital. So here would be H. When this ionizes, when it loses its electron, so loses electron, all that's left is a proton in the center. So that's why we call these guys protons. So we indicate this with an H plus. So only a proton. This is why we call this a proton. This is why we call the hydrogen cation a proton. Okay, so back to acids. We said that acids increase the concentration of HCl, of hydrogen protons. So let me give you an example of a very strong acid, hydrochloric acid. And abbreviated, it's just HCl. And this is what it looks like. So hydrogen covalently bonded, which is 2 electrons here, to a chlorine atom. And this has 3 lone pairs. Now HCl, when you put this in an aqueous solution, that's what it means by this AQ here. This dissociates completely. This H separates itself from this chlorine. But let's see what happens on a smaller level. So this chlorine is going to take these 2 electrons, and something else, which isn't drawn here, is going to pull this H away. So H lost its electron. Electrons have a negative charge, so if it lost a negative charge, it's now positive. And this chlorine here took that electron. It took a negative charge, so therefore this guy has a negative charge. And if you look here on the left, there's no charge. If you look on the right, the plus and the minus charge also gives you a sum of no charge. So this is a strong acid, and the strong just refers to the fact that it dissociates completely. Strong because dissociates completely. Another way to say this is that the reaction goes to completion. Okay, so, but you won't actually find protons just, hanging around in solution. This is in a solution with water, and water is kind of what takes up that proton. So let me rewrite my equation. HCl, again in an aqueous solution. But now we're going to add water. And this L here right now denotes that it's in liquid form. So HCl has my 3 lone pairs. And let me draw a water molecule. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. This chlorine is going to take both of these electrons, but now the lone pair of this oxygen is going to take this hydrogen proton. So let's draw what we have left. So now this O has 3 H's attached to it. And since it took a proton, again, protons have a positive charge, this oxygen acquired a positive charge. And this chlorine here, gained a negative electron, gained an electron which is negative, so this has a negative charge. So if you look in this picture, everything is balanced, and so is the charge. Well, let me finish this. H3O plus, and then plus Cl minus. So up here, I wrote H plus, but down here we have H3O. But for our purposes, we can consider them the same thing. So let's illustrate that. So H3O plus, this is the hydronium cation. Hydronium cation. And for our purposes, this is going to be equivalent to a proton. So for example, if you're ever looking for the concentration of hydronium, you can just think of it as looking for the concentration of these protons. Okay, so I gave you a very strong acid, HCl. Now let me give you a different acid with more relevance to biology. So in our body we have this one reaction, carbon dioxide plus water. These two combine to give you carbonic acid, H2CO3. So this here is carbonic acid. And carbonic acid can also increase the concentration of protons. So H2CO3, this is going to give up one of its protons, so there it is right there. And let me just rewrite what's left over. HCO3 minus. So left side is neutral, so is the right side. Now what makes carbonic acid a bit different than HCl is that it can give up a second proton. So gave up first proton. And then what are these? This product, this is called a bicarbonate anion because it has a negative charge. So this is the bicarbonate anion. Now this anion can undergo a second protonation. So just like before, it gives up a proton. Let me write what we have left. This would be CO3, 2 minus. So if you look on the left, there is an overall charge of -1. This proton has a charge of +1. Here we have a -2, and if you sum these, this gives you a -1. So my charges are balanced, we are all good. And carbonic acid also acts as a buffer in our bodies. And I'll mention this a bit more later, but buffers can resist changes in pH and acidity. in acidity. Okay, so now on for a base. According to Arrhenius, bases increase the concentration of OH minus. Another way to say this, using shorthand, is that bases increase. Again, brackets denotes concentration of, and then we have this guy. So acids, it was increased protons. Bases, it's increased OH. And OH, this is the hydroxide anion. So let's give you an example of a strong base. Sodium, if you look on your periodic table, is Na, and the hydroxide is just this. Now when you put this in an aqueous solution, this also dissociates completely. That's what it means by when you say something is strong. So there's my sodium, and this hydroxide took that electron from sodium, and thus it acquired this negative charge. And again, we call this a strong because the dissociation from Na to OH happens completely. Complete or very, very near complete dissociation. Or if this doesn't make any sense to you, you can think of it as the reaction complete. Reaction completely to the right. Okay, so now we can discuss one fact about water. Let me draw a water molecule. Let me draw another one. And water can act a bit like both an acid and a base. So for a very small instance, what can possibly happen, is that these negative electrons can pull this positive H, and then that interaction weakens this bond over here, and now this oxygen can take those electrons. So let's see what we have. So first OH lost, and it gained that pair, thus it acquired a negative charge. And then we have H3O, which has a positive charge. So this doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. So we can say that the reaction occurs, slightly. And then I will continue in the next video.